Book 3, The Walking Stone. Rakkety, rakkety, rakkety tam, the drums are beating bro. Rakkety, rakkety, rakkety tam, are ye marching off to war? That savage from the lands of ice, he no like any other. He sworn to get the walking stone and murder his own brother. 'Tis bro to woo a bonny maid, for love is aye sae sweet. Yet who'll be left to tell the tale? Then steel and fang must meet. Chapter 29. To say that Wild Doogy Plumm and Euphus Lightpaw looted the vermin camp would have been a gross understatement. Between them, the Highlander and the Vole Thief left the place stripped bare to the earth. The happy pair came away decked from ear to tail and from paw tip to snout end with ornaments the vermin had left behind in their haste. Earrings, tail rings, paw rings, bracelets, necklets, belts and sashes were all donned as the two victors criticised and complimented each other. "Och, you're no going to wear yon daft medallion hanging from your tail, are you?" "Sure, why not, pray? I think it makes me look like a grand old savage, so it does." Doogy scoffed. "More like a broody duck with a half-laid egg hanging from its tail. Here, I'll slip you for this broad gold and purple sash. You can bind it round your brow." They exchanged the plunder, with Euphus winding the sash several times round his middle. He began thrusting knives, hatchets and curved swords through it until he could barely bend to pick up another blade from the stack of arms they'd found. Bristling with weaponry, they surveyed one another. Euphus grinned proudly. "Aye, you ken. If I had 16 extra sets of paws, I could charge an army with this little lot. I'd put the axe in front of me belt if I were you, mate, because if you fell backwards, you'd chop your tail off." Doogy took his friend's advice. "Oh, mayhaps you're right. That's a fine wee dagger you've got stored in your belt. Do you want to trade it for this axe of mine?" The Vole Thief wasted no time in responding. "Aye, it's a pretty blade. All right, tell you what, I'll exchange it for that big old knife of yours, Doogy." The Highlander's paw shot to his dark hilt. "You'll do no such thing, you rascal. That was my father's duck, and his father afore him. Ugh, it's a pity the vermin never left any victuals lying about. I'm peckish." Euphus wrinkled his nose in disgust. "I'm famished myself. I wouldn't find dead eating all that tripe and offal these hooligans feed on. Come on, mate, let's go and see if we can't search out a glove of some decent rations. Here, lend a paw with me drum, will you? 'Tis too big for one beast to be dragging around." Doogy was swift to point out the error of his companion's ways. "Oh, now, hold on a tick, thief. That's no your drum. By rights, that drum belongs to the beasties of Redwall Abbey. The hares were bringing it as a gift to him." The watervole shot out his chin defiantly. "Finders keepers, losers weepers. That's what my old mammy always said." Doogy was just as truculent as Euphus in his reply. "Did she now? Well, your old mammy must have been a worse robber than you are, my friend." Spitting on his paws, Euphus performed a little dance. "Now listen to me, you old ranch bouncer. Don't you dare talk about me darling mammy like that. I'll lay you out flat as a fluke." The Highlander adopted a boxing stance. "Oh, will you now? Come on, you fat, fatty-furred water walloper. Let's see you try it. I'll knock your block off." Euphus darted towards Doogy, but owing to all the armament he was carrying, he stumbled and fell forward, striking his nose on the Highlander's clenched paw. Euphus sat down hard, but instantly shot upright, holding his nose and rear end at the same time. Immediately Doogy was concerned for him. "I'm sorry, mate. 'Twas an accident. Are you all right?" Far from being all right, Euphus was the picture of outraged dignity, and he wasted no time letting the squirrel know about it. "Hey, you miserable bush-tailed slimy striking a defenceless beast like that makes me think we were friends, you dirty old turncoat." Doogy could not help laughing. "Defenceless? You're carrying enough weapons to outfit a regiment. Oh, come on now, matey. You're no that bad hurt." Euphus knew the squirrel was right, but he had a good sulk nevertheless. "Look at me, will ye? Me nose is swelling like a summer sunset. You've round and destroyed me handsome young face, and me innards regions are slashed to blazes." Doogy inspected his comrade's supposed wounds. "Nae such thing, laddie. There's nought wrong with your snout, and as for your bottom, you nicked it on that calf sword at the back of your sash. It's only a sweet scratch. You'll live. Let's shake paws and be friends." Euphus half stretched his paw towards Doogy. "Then you'll help me with me drum." Doogy withdrew his paw. "I'll no help a robbing thief to carry off stolen property. 'Tis agin my principles." "Did you be our put in our fancy base here?" They both turned to see 6 creatures had been watching them, 2 ferrets, a weasel and 3 rats. They were an unsavoury-looking gang, garbed in an assortment of rags and pieces of foliage. Each one was armed with a club and a long flint-tipped spear. Their leader, the weasel, prodded Euphus with his spear point, grinning wickedly through snaggled yellow teeth. "Jaw down those nice fancy weapons, or we'll kill you." Doogy winked at Euphus as they unbuckled their arms. "Oh, let's play along with you unscruffy frog frightener for a wee while. Maybe we'll get fed, eh?" Unable to understand the Highlanders' thick northern brogue, the weasel snarled at Euphus. "What beast talking about?" Before replying, Euphus murmured to Doogy, "Aye, and they might have some loot stored back at their dun. Let's play along with this old Egypt, mate." The watervole turned to the weasel, pretending to be terrified. "Ah, no, you won't hurt us, sir. We're just poor travellers, and this is a pair of butterflies. That's us, so go easy." The weasel took Euphus's new sash, cackling to his cronies. "Go easy, eh? Ha ha, we go easy, sure enough." The others dived on Euphus and Doogy's loot, fighting and scrabbling. The weasel kicked and bit at them, lording most of their gear onto 2 of the rats. "Carry this, may say who gets what. Bring Fancy Beast along." The pair allowed themselves to be prodded and pushed through the undergrowth by the vermin. Doogy tried to keep his volatile temper in check, whispering to Euphus, "If yon wee rats keep tucking my tail with a spear, he'll be wearing it as a nose ornament before he's much older. Where the name of fur are they taking us?" Euphus noted the direction in which they were travelling. "Ah, never fret, me old tater. I think we're bound to my old neighbourhood. If I gets a chance, I'll take you to my neat little home, and you can visit with me darling wife, Digity. House, will you be careful of that old spear, sir? My backside's smarting enough as it is." They were over half a day marching through wood and fenland, until they began following a stream bank to the southwest. Euphus smiled. "I sure wasn't only right, Doogy Plumm. We're almost back on me old patch. Seasons be praised for those fine vermin, carrying all that stuff and toting that big heavy drum of mine for us. Aren't the thick of the duff as a grand old crew?" The weasel snarled at the watervole. "You sharp your mouth and guide his way." He led them to a hole at the base of an elm. It sloped down into a big roomy cave whose walls and ceiling were part of the tree's root complex. 4 vermin were inside, 2 ferrets and 2 more rats. There was also a family of dormice, 2 adults and 5 little ones. The cave had once been their tidy home, though now it was in a mess owing to the vermin occupation. The male dormouse recognised Euphus straight away. "Mr. Lightpool, what you doing here?" The watervole winked at him. "Hush now, Mr. Musker. Don't ye go cracking on like you know me." The weasel glared at Euphus. "You 2 knows each other, do ya?" The vole thief shook his head vigorously. "Who, me, sir? I never seen a fella before in me life. Ask his good missus. She'll tell you. Ain't that right, ma'am?" Mr. Musker's wife, Lupinia, was stirring a cauldron of stew over the fire. She winked at Euphus, showing she was far quicker on the uptake than her husband. "Oh, I know. We never had the pleasure. Pleased to meet you, I'm sure. I'm Lupinia Musker. That's my husband, Musker. And these are our young ones, Pippa, Gretty, Wortle, Burren and Babpick. Say hello to the nice gentle beast that we've never met, me dears." The young dormice caught their mother's look and called out as one, "Hello, Euphus." Doogy watched Lupinia pull bread and a batch of scones from the oven by the fire. He sniffed the stew appreciatively. "I must say, that smells very good, ma'am." The rat who had been prodding Doogy sniggered. "That's not for you, fancy beast." He poked the Highlander's tail again with the stone-tipped paw. Doogy looked pointedly at the watervole. "Dearie me, I reckon I've took enough of this nonsense." Euphus smiled politely at the dormouse couple. "Would you not like to take the babbies outside to play for a while?" As is typical of many father dormice, Mr. Musker was fairly dim-witted. Clearly not having caught on, he blinked and scratched his stomach as he replied, "Yeah, you'll be there bedtime soon." His wife gathered the young ones together. "Do as a good beast says, dear. Let's take them outside into the fresh air for a bit." A sly kick to her husband's paw set things right. "Oh, outside, yes, why not? Still some daylight left." The weasel nodded towards the food. "What about those victuals, eh?" Euphus reassured him fawningly. Don't get your tail in a nut, sir. Sure we'll serve you, won't we, mate?" Doogy grinned widely. "Like you can wager your bad teeth on that, my friend. We'll serve you, sure enough." The weasel pointed at Doogy. "What he says?" The watervole chuckled. "He says he's highly delighted to be serving you, sir. It'll be a meal like you've never had before. So sit yourselves down now." Lavinia and her husband sat watching their young ones by the stream bank. The young dormice were making small twig boards with leaves for sails and floating them on the water. Mr. Muskar expressed his confusion and unhappiness with everything.
Yes, it's bad enough being threatened and overrun by vermin, but when we're put out of our own home to play with the young ones, well, that really is the limit. By the time we're allowed back inside, those vermin brutes will have eaten all the food. There's little enough left as it is. The capital, that rascal Lightbulb, invites himself and his friends round for dinner. We've got a family to think of, so we've got to put up with it all. What are we to do, Lavinia?
His wife replied soothingly,
Don't worry, dear. I'm sure everything will work out all right.
The conversation was interrupted by the sounds of uproar from within their horde. Muskar leapt up with alarm.
Oh, good gracious, what's all this about?
The body of a rat came sailing out of the dormouse's home, landing in a heap across Muskar's footpaws. He recoiled from the carcass as the din from indoors increased.
A wee brah, come on, ye villains. I'm no dormousey, I'm Wild Doogy Plumm. A wee brah.
Footpaws pounded madly about, mingled with vermin screams.
Oh, look at me!
Get a spear, get off! Come here, me scruffy old beauty. I'll teach you to bully man neighbour, so I will.
Get behind that defensive base, use your spear.
Oh, he'll no problem, no more creatures with that thing, my bonny vermin. You taste a claymore blade.
A ferret staggered out, clutching his stomach. He gurgled horribly before collapsing. Muskar stared at his wife in amazement.
It's like poor and squirrel. They're fighting a vermin. But help.
His wife called to her young ones.
Play further up the bank, but don't wander too far away.
She turned to her husband.
I told you not to worry, dear. Mr. Lightpaw and his friend are warriors. Trust me, they'll take care of those dreadful vermin.
Muskar grabbed the club from the paws of a dead rat.
Go and look after our young'uns, you pinya. I'll be longing for a chance to have a crack at those vermin.
He rushed indoors, waving the club and roaring.
Invade my home and steal my food, would you? You bottle-nosed snaggle-tooth tap-fur bullies. Take that, and that's some of this too.
When the atmosphere became calmer, the Dormouse mother brought her brood back to the cave. Muskar was helping Doogy and Euphis to throw the slain vermin into the stream. Euphis bowed politely to her.
You'd best take the babbies inside, missus. Surely don't want to be saying this like the pumpkin.
Doogy doffed his cap.
Aye, ma'am. We kept them well away from the victuals. Going in now. The pens will be wanting to eat your fine cooking.
Lavinia curtsied prettily to her saviours.
My thanks to you, good beast. Will you join us for supper?
Euphis nodded to Doogy and Muskar.
I'll finish up here and join you later.
With stew, new-baked bread and some honey and preserved fruit, they dined thankfully. Mr. Muskar produced a gourd of his special bilberry and apple cordial.
I was hiding this from the scum.
After a while, Euphis strolled in, washing his paws off with stream water. He accepted his platter gratefully.
Yeah, well, that's that. You don't mind me saying, mate, but you got me pretty little dagger stowed in your belt. I'll thank you to return it.
Deftly catching the blade which Doogy tossed to him, Euphis eyed a small stringed instrument hanging on the wall.
Is that a mandolero, sir? Faith, it's a long season since I saw one of those. Can I try it, sir?
Mr. Muskar took it down.
Be my guest.
The watervole twiddled the tiny carved pegs, tuning it until he was satisfied at the tone. He winked at the young Muskars.
Shall I give you a bit of an old song?
The little dormice nodded eagerly. Euphis took a swig of Muskar's special cordial and strummed a chord.
Right then, this is no ditty me grandma used to sing. I wrote it myself this morning.
He launched straight into the lively air.
There's some likes of spotting and throwing the ball, but I love the howling and fighting and all. So if you're in a ruction, just give a loud call, and myself will come charging to aid you. I've walloped a weasel and stiffened a stoat. I can beat any dirty old vermin that float, and if I grab a lizard that'll nip by his throat, sure he'll wish he'd stayed home with his mammy. I fought with a ferret and roasted a rat. I biffed a big fox, I laid him out flat. I'm as tough and ferocious as any wild cat, mind your manners when Euphis comes calling. One morning I strolled all alone by the lake, and spied a great serpent whose name was Mac Snake. I seized hold of his tail and gave him such a shake that the adder became a subtractor. If there's ever a chance for a row or a fight, I'll battle all day and long into the night, and put all those baggy-nosed vermin to flight, that's providing I'm home for me dinner. I got home last night and me mammy did say, have you been out scrapping the whole livelong day? She spanked me young tail with her old-fashioned way, and sent me off to bed with no supper.